Hello everyone, it's Robin the Delta Crafter, and I want to thank you for joining me for a special video on my YouTube channel. Today's video is part of the Card Crafters Collaborative for Fall 2022. This is a collaboration that I've put together with some of my favorite crafty people, and we've all come together around the theme of Fall Splendor. There will be links below to everyone's video, and I encourage you to visit their channels and hit the subscribe button while you're there. I have a card today that I'm making for you that showcases fall leaves in some unusual colors, as well as a textured background. Let's look at the products we'll be using today. First up is this beautiful autumn leaves die set from scrapbook.com. This die set has various different sizes of leaves, which make it great to be used for all different kinds of projects. We're going to be using a couple of different colors of distress ink, including Peacock Feather, Aged Mahogany, Spice Marmalade, and Mustard Seed. I'm going to bring in some gold hero paste. This is brand new on the market, and I'm going to use that on my background. I'll be adding some texture to the background using this plaid embossing folder from Sizzix. That one I've had in my stash for a while. I'll be using some Bristol Smooth paper, as well as some Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock in 80-pound weight. I thought I would use some twine on this card, but in the end, I ended up not using it. Let's go ahead and jump into making this card. So I want to start off by making the background because we're going to do a technique on it that needs a little bit of time to dry. So this is a piece of Neenah Classic Crest Solar White. It's been cut down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And I'm going to place that in my embossing folder and run that through my embossing machine and get that beautiful textural background on this piece of paper. You can see there that you can use either side of that cardstock, but I'm choosing to use the side where the lines are the part that's raised up. I brought in that hero paste in gold. Again, this is brand new on the market. It came out with Hero Arts Christmas release. And this gold hero paste is a beautiful, beautiful colors. Lots of shimmer in it. So how I'm going to apply it is I'm just going to dip my finger into the hero paste and rub my finger lightly across the raised areas of the background. Now, the more you press, the harder you press your finger, the more the hero paste will collect and pool in the recessed areas of your panel. So in some places I am going to push a little harder and get some of that hero paste into the recessed areas because I don't want a consistent look. I want a little bit of an organic and just all over the place kind of look. I don't want it to look like it was pressed and manufactured. I want it to look like it was hand done. So you can see here I'm just getting a little bit more of that hero paste, and I am being light in the amount of hero paste that I get on my finger because like most things, you can add more, but you can't take it away. So I did want to be just super light with how much I had actually on my finger so that I can have a little bit more control of where it goes. So I've set that aside to dry, and while I'm letting that dry, I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple of pieces of that Bristol Smooth cardstock. This Bristol Smooth paper takes water in very well, as it allows colors to blend and move around, similar to watercolor paper. I didn't want the thickness and the texture of watercolor paper, so that's why I reached for my Bristol Smooth cardstock. So you can see here, I'm smushing some ink onto my glass craft mat. By the way, this is a glass craft mat from Glass Board Studio. I'll have a link in the description where you can pick up one at a discounted rate. I think it's 20% off if you use my code below. So I've smushed some of that into my my glass craft mat here, and I'm going to spray that ink with some water. This will allow the inks to move around because, as many of you know, I've used distress inks often in my videos because they're my favorite inks. But they also react to water. That's one of the things that I love about them. They react to water. So by spraying the inks with the water, I'm able to get them to move around and again give me an organic kind of eclectic kind of look with the ink that I've laid down. So if you haven't guessed by now, we're going to be doing some ink smushing. So while I still have some quadrants of color there, by the time we get to smushing, that color is gonna be all over the place. The inks are gonna blend, and we're gonna get some brand new colors as well. So I'm smushing my Bristol cardstock paper into the ink, and I'm just getting my first layer of ink onto my paper. One of the things that I love about ink smushing is being able to layer up and add more layers of color to my paper by using this technique. So I'm going to be able to do that and speed that along by hitting my paper with my heat tool. Once I feel like that's dry enough, then I'm going to go back into that ink and smush some more. And you can see there on the board how the inks have come together, and we've gotten some new colors that are present on the board. And that color is being transferred to the cardstock as I continue to smush. I love the way that this piece came together. I know that aqua is an unusual color for when you think of fall themes, but I really like the brightness and freshness that it offers when you mix it with those more traditional fall colors. I also love the depth of the aged mahogany. That is more of a maroon or burgundy type of color, and I just really love the depth that provides for this fall theme. So I'm laying out some of the larger leaves from this Autumn Leaves die set, and I'm laying those across this inked up Bristol Smooth cardstock that we created just a few minutes ago. I'm going to use a long piece of this Easy C tape and lay that across all 4 of those dies. And that's because I'm going to just continue to use these dies and move those dies down the paper and cut more and more leaves. So you can see that I've cut my first round of leaves, and I'm showing you there how those dies were lined up before. But in order to get a variation in colors with also a variation in leaf style, I decided to turn the leaves around and cut them from a different way so then I can get a good variance in my leaf colors. This Grateful Sentiment also is a part of the die set. So I'm going to cut the Grateful in some gold mirror cardstock, and I'm going to cut the base or the shadow from some white cardstock, just some scraps that I had hanging around. That gold mirror cardstock is going to tie into that gold hero paste and connect that way. So I really like the direction this is moving in. I'm going to layer up all of those pieces of the shadow, glue those together, and put an acrylic block on them to weigh them down. I ended up with 3 layers of the shadow, and that's going to give me some great dimension for that sentiment. Now the letters in this sentiment are individually cut. So that means that you're going to have to lay down each letter individually. So I started with the G in grateful, and went out from there a couple of letters. Then I decided to start with the L on the end and kind of work my way back to the middle. So I think I laid down about 3 letters, then moved to the L at the very end of the word, and then go back from there. Because what I didn't want to do was to get off in my letter spacing, and then I get to the end and I'm like, this doesn't work. This doesn't fit anymore because I've put too much space between the letters. So that's a suggestion that I have for you, is to kind of work from the ends towards the middle. Now I'm getting ready to adhere my my card panel to my card base. So I want this textured piece to be lifted up a little bit, as well as, because of the texture, like I didn't feel like liquid adhesive would do the job as well as some foam tape. So I put quite a bit of foam tape on the back of this card panel, and now I'm going to secure it to a piece of accent opaque cardstock in 120-pound weight. Up until this moment, I really thought that I was going to do this card in a portrait layout. But it's at this moment, when I'm adhering the panel to the cardstock, that I decide I think I like this better as a landscape layout. So I switched it and turned it around and was able to assemble the card from there. So in order to figure out how I want my leaves to cascade up across the card, I'm going to do a dry fit with my leaves. They're all different colors. They're all, different shapes and sizes. And so I needed to play around with these leaves a little bit, the placement of them anyway, to figure out what was going to be the way that I wanted to go. So with this initial layout I was working with, I'm like, okay, that's too much orange and brown and yellow together. I got these other bright colors that I want to incorporate. So I decided to switch it around a little bit. I thought maybe I might go in a rainbow of the fall colors and kind of fade from one color to the next. But with the smushing that we did, that just did not work out. That was not going to work out with these leaves. So once I've got a layout that I really am pleased with, I take a piece of my press and seal. You can see there I had like 4 or 5 pieces stuck together because I use these pieces over and over again. I've cut them a little bit larger than the typical A2 size card, and they can be used over and over again. So I keep them like over to the side near me where I can easily grab them. I want the leaves to have a little bit of texture and dimension, so I'm going to pop some of them up. The rest of them I'm going to secure directly to the card. So with this first layer of leaves, you can see that I am put liquid glue on the back of just a few of them. So I'm going to put those down on the card, and I'm going to put that acrylic block on them to kind of try to secure them. It worked for some of the leaves. It didn't work for the other ones, and that's because of the heavily textured card panel, as well as we added that gold hero paste. So it either needed a little bit more time to dry, or it just needed more adhesive. Either way, I added more adhesive, and now I'm coming back in with the leaves that I'm going to pop up with some foam squares. So I'm adding a few of those to the card panel and allowing those foam squares to adhere. Those work very well because they have a little bit more texture, or should I say, flexibility to allow them to adhere to something that has texture. I still have a few leaves over to the side. Some of them, are just being a little bit stubborn when it comes to sticking to their placement. But that's okay. We can work with that. So what I'm going to do is kind of dry fit or fit this sentiment on here. And I realized that one of the places that I had a leaf popped up is where the sentiment is going to end up landing. And because that sentiment is popped up as well, I needed that leaf that'll be under it to be flat. So I ended up pulling that off, pulling the foam square off, and just adhering it with that liquid glue. That's Barely Art's glue, by the way, and it's one of my favorite adhesives to use for card making. So those last remaining leaves, I'm fitting those in and securing those down with that liquid glue as well. And now I'm going to secure the sentiment to our card with that same Barely Art's liquid glue. Those gold foil pieces, gold mirror cardstock rather, letters have had a chance to dry, and with that last bit there, this card is complete. Those ink smushed leaves coupled with that golden textured background are giving me all the fall feels, even though it's rather warm here where I live. But I can see fall in this card. What I want to know from you guys is, do you use unusual colors in your fall crafting and decorating? Drop me a comment below and let me know what colors come to mind for you when you think about fall. Thank you so much for joining me for another video on my YouTube channel. Be sure to stop by all the other crafters' videos that are linked and listed below that are participating in this collaboration. As always, the products I use for this card will be listed and linked below, as well as on my coordinating blog post. I hope you guys have enjoyed this Fall Splendor collaboration, and I hope to see you soon. You guys take care, and until next time, enjoy!